there is one huge character that may make an appearance in the Walking Dead spin-offs that we need to talk about. Since the Walking Dead main series has finished, AMC has been loading up on spin-offs. We got a Rick and Michonne spin-off, a Daryl spin-off, and a Negan and Maggie spin-off. Before we get into this mystery man, I want to go over each spin-off individually. First, we got the Negan and Maggie spin-off. This one comes out in June, so there's not going to be that long of a wait. The first season has completely wrapped filming, and surprisingly, there haven't been that many leaks for, which is why I'm kind of excited about that specifically. And this spin-off takes place years after The Walking Dead, and Maggie's son Herschel gets kidnapped by some people, probably the CRM. Actually, we know it's the CRM for an unknown reason. We know it's years after The Walking Dead because Herschel's voice in the teaser trailer is noticeably deeper. So I put a time range of 3 to 6 years after the main show. As far as why Herschel gets kidnapped, maybe it has something to do with him being a kid that was born during the apocalypse. I don't know if they're valued by the CRM for some reason. My guess would be an experimentation reason. They just want kids to do tests on to see if they're different since they were born in this time. You know the CRM loves to do experiments. We saw that in World Beyond. We also see that Negan is the person Maggie turns to for help for some reason, and I highly doubt she would willingly go to Negan, so maybe he has some connections to people in New York, potentially former saviors. We know he is well known in New York as seen on this wanted poster held up by this cowboy looking dude. Next spinoff, Rick and Michonne. This one just started filming not that long ago and I'm pretty sure is still filming, at least at the time of me posting this video. This spinoff has been leaked to hell. I've seen so many clips of them on set. I saw a clip of Rick and Michonne running away from something, which, I mean, that's kind of to be expected for a spinoff this big. I mean, Rick and Michonne are two of the most popular characters, Rick being the protagonist in the main series, but this spinoff's mainly going to focus on the love story between Rick and Michonne and the two lovers being separated, but obviously reuniting once again, as we see in the leaked footage. My only problem with this spinoff is that it's 6 episodes and it is going to be really tough to cover where the hell Rick has been in the last 7 years in 6 episodes. And they gotta focus on Rick and Michonne escaping the CRM, and they gotta focus on where Michonne has been. They call Rick Consignee Grimes in the final episode, and he's wearing a uniform just like that of Silas's in the Walking Dead World Beyond, and Silas was involved in the exterminating the walkers stuff, so I don't know if they gave Rick that job. Seems a little underwhelming for a guy as capable as Rick Grimes, but hey, sure. But to be fair, a lot of people in the CRM have this jacket. Thing with the staff is that I've only seen the exterminator people with them. Lastly, there's the Daryl Dixon spinoff, which we have very little information on. And at the time of this video, I believe it is still filming. I don't think they've wrapped it up quite yet. But all we really know about this spinoff is that Daryl washes up on the shores of France and he has to figure out, you know, where he is, how he got there. Again, most likely the CRM, just like with all these spin-offs. But this is where something interesting comes in. Now, this might be coming out of left field for some of you, but if you didn't know, Rick Grimes does have a brother. From what I know, he was never even mentioned in the main series. His brother's name is Jeffrey Grimes, and there is like a spin-off comic thing that focused on him. So basically, Jeff Grimes' story is that he saved up money to start traveling the world, and during the midst of his traveling, while he was in Barcelona, which is in Spain, he found out that his brother Rick Grimes was shot while on duty and he is currently in a coma. Jeffrey, like any good brother, wanted to go back to the United States to see his brother, but there was recently a quarantine that had been installed in Spain, you know, the whole zombie apocalypse thing going on, so he couldn't go anywhere. This whole mini comic kind of describes his journey in Spain trying to survive. He has a much more tough time than his brother Rick did, but after a short time, Jeff is bit in the leg by a walker, and in order to avoid becoming a zombie, he was put down by his good friend Claudia, whom he'd met during the apocalypse. Now you might be wondering, how is he gonna tie into any spin-off if he is dead and buried? But you have to remember, that was just the comic. You know how many times this show has done something different than the comics? I mean, you gotta think, in the comic universe, Carl is an old man, Rick is dead, Andrea and Rick were dating for a very long time, and I believe they got married. My point being that a lot of things are different in the comics. The only thing that really stays the same is the locations that they travel to and the antagonists they go against, and, you know, just the general plot. Also, I'd like to point out that the Jeffrey Grimes comic all takes place before Rick even wakes up from the coma. But here's my thing. Let's say in the TV show universe, they make Jeffrey Grimes a lot more lucky and a lot more capable of surviving, kind of taking after his brother a bit more. Because he would have gotten footing so early in the apocalypse, compared to Rick, who just woke up in a world of madness. Assuming he has similar traits to his brother, he could really do some damage. He could group together people. He could start leading a community very early in. And Barcelona, which is where Jeffrey was, compared to Paris, France, that's about an 11-hour drive. And I know that sounds like a lot in the zombie apocalypse, but you have to remember, Atlanta to DC is around a 10-hour drive. And the group went from Atlanta to DC in the TV show and the comics, I believe. So let's get back to the Daryl spin-off. We know he is going to be in Paris, France. If you remember back to season 1 of The Walking Dead, you remember that Dr. Jenner said that French scientists were the last ones to hold out. So they clearly had something built there that other countries didn't. And we also know, revealed at the end of World Beyond, that they somehow made things worse instead of making a cure. They made that weird variant zombie that Daryl's gonna see a whole lot of in his spinoff. And I mean, we see it at the end of World Beyond. That lady turns within 30 seconds and she runs and slams against that door. It looked exactly like those World War Z zombies, and those things are so much more terrifying than the Walking Dead walkers. But my point is that there very well may be CRM presence in France, or if not the CRM, some other community. And my proposal is that Jeffrey Grimes is the leader of this community. I think it would be a damn good reveal if Daryl spent all this time, you know, working his way through this community or killing people to get to the top of this community, just to find out that Rick's brother is the one leading it all. That would cause a heavy conflict between Daryl, his brother, and Rick. So overall, there are two main options I see here with the introduction of Jeffrey Grimes. Option A, he's just another survivor, you know, with his group of people, and he stumbles across Daryl. They introduce each other, Daryl figures out it's Rick's brother, and they somehow find a way to get back to the US so Jeff can reunite with his family. Option B, the bad guy stuff I was describing before. Let's say Jeffrey Grimes was a pretty good guy before the apocalypse, which I'm sure he was. He could be a very, very, very different person this far into the apocalypse. In fact, he's almost guaranteed to be. We know Daryl isn't gonna stay in Europe. He's not just gonna leave everyone at the Commonwealth behind. You know, he has Judith, Carol, RJ back there. He has all those people he needs to get back to. Maybe he comes back with Rick's brother and they team up to go get Rick and Michonne. The only problem with Rick's brother and Daryl and Rick all reuniting together is that Rick's spinoff is only going to be 1 season and it's only going to be 6 episodes. Now, that's not saying that he's not going to appear in other spinoffs, but it makes me think that this spinoff is just going to be the last we see of him and, you know, the end of his story, which in my opinion would be super disappointing if he didn't end up reuniting with his family at the end of his spinoff. Like, sure, he could reunite with Michonne and they could go live happily ever after, but what about Judith and RJ? They can't just leave their kids, man. All I'm saying is that it would take away from the realism a lot if Rick and Michonne were just content and happy being only with each other. The Rick Grimes I know would never in a million years give up on finding his kids again. And they better not make that an off-screen thing, because this is something we've been waiting for as Walking Dead fans for years. Robert Kirkman did say in the past that Jeffrey Grimes would not appear in the main series, which we obviously saw, but he did specify main series. He never mentioned any spin-off. I just think there is huge potential here that the Walking Dead writers could use. Do I think it's gonna happen? Realistically, probably not. I will admit, I'm not a writer. These ideas I'm throwing out here, they could be bad ideas. Personally, I think it would be really cool to introduce Rick's brother. More specifically, I think it would be cool if they made him a bad guy. You know, if they made Daryl versus Jeffrey Grimes the main conflict in the Daryl Dixon spinoff. Now, whether they would introduce him right off the bat as Jeffrey Grimes and Daryl would learn pretty early, or they would introduce it later and Daryl would be really shocked that he's trying to kill Rick's brother. As far as Jeffrey appearing in any of the other spinoffs, I can't really see it. The Negan and Maggie spinoff, for me, that's completely out of the table unless he is a significant member inside of the CRM, which maybe he's at the CRM place in New York. I don't really think they'd introduce him in that spinoff, though. It doesn't really seem right. The Rick and Michonne spinoff, it could be really interesting if they introduced him in that. I mean, if Jeffrey got news of someone named Rick Grimes joining the CRM, he would immediately go to them, because I'm still assuming that he is a high-ranking member in this group. I just can't see him being introduced as someone that's not like a leader. But again, another piece of conflict pops up. If he was a leader in America, I feel like we would have saw that in World Beyond. I feel like they would have mentioned someone named Jeffrey Grimes. Unless he's just that high up and he just doesn't get talked about. But yeah, I really don't think he's in America. Rather, he's still in Europe with Daryl. The only way to get to the US from Europe is, I guess, the way that Daryl got from the US to Europe. So it's not completely off the table, but it makes a lot more sense for the Daryl Dixon spinoff. As far as other characters that could appear in the Walking Dead spinoffs, we have a lot of people in the Walking Dead world beyond. You know, we have the main guys like Elton, Iris, Hope, and Silas. We have Jadis, who we know through leaks is going to appear in the Walking Dead Rick and Michonne spinoff. There's a good chance Silas might. He was training to become a CRM soldier in World Beyond, and it looked like he was going to be put in a leadership role, so I wouldn't be too surprised if he popped up in the Rick and Michonne spinoff. Really, the thing I'm most excited for in this Daryl Dixon spinoff are these crazy fast zombies. Even a guy like Daryl is going to have a tough time against these things. The way they move, they're basically people, but they're cannibals, and not the Terminus kind. They're more like those feral people that Virgil and Connie were up against in that one episode. Not to mention, they're smarter. Overall, these spinoffs could really start introducing more of the world in The Walking Dead, and this really could be the start of something bigger. These 3 spinoffs don't have to be the end of it. They can keep evolving this world, and it could become something massive. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe. We're trying to grow a community over here. This is Lucas signing out. Y'all have a blessed day.